Hi everyone, Mixilium here. Windows doesn't just work anymore, and I'm done pretending like it does. I am a lifelong Windows user, not a tech nerd, just a regular person. And this is my story about why I chose to leave Windows and replace it with something better. Linux. So, as said earlier, I used Windows for the most of my life. However, after Windows 11 came into my life, everything changed. It felt slow, I didn't have any control over customization or what I want to do with my operating system. Full of bloatware, full of ads. And the ironic thing is that you have to pay for Windows. That is crazy. You are paying for an operating system that gives you ads and doesn't let you control what you are doing. That to me is something that was the straw that broke the camel's back, to be honest. After a while, a lot of my friends started to switch to Linux. So I was wondering like, hey, what's so good about Linux? So I asked them. So they told me about all the benefits and stuff. So after a while, I looked into it more. I looked at the resources online, and everything about Linux seemed like the dream operating system. Basically, you have total control over your operating system, what you want to do with it, when you want to update it. I didn't even mention this about Windows, but you always get these automatic updates that are so flipping annoying. Always have to do them, not your choice at all. In Linux, most of the time, you never get automatic updates. You have to physically go in there to update your apps. You can probably enable it, but it doesn't come by default. By default, you have to choose if you want to update or not, which is the way it should be. Of course, before switching to Linux, I had my fears. There's definitely a few common things people think about Linux that keep them from making the final choice to go to Linux. That is, first of all, for me, it was losing some of my favorite apps. I really love Vegas Pro for editing, and sometimes I use FL Studio for like making music and stuff. That was one of my main problems with switching to Linux. However, it can be overcome. There are like local apps that are similar. For example, instead of Vegas Pro, you have this editing app that is called just DaVinci Resolve, which work basically the same like Vegas Pro. So that wasn't too big of a problem. Hey, Future Xilium here. Just wanted to quickly let you know that I don't know why I worded it like this in the video, but I actually haven't tried the program in Linux yet. So yesterday when I tried to use it, I had a few issues actually. First of all, it was really hard to get it working even, the program. I had to put like some custom commands and everything like that. And even when I got it to work, every time I put one of the videos into the timeline, it just crashed. So yeah, I don't know how to fix that, but when I ask AI, they thought like the main reason why it's happening is because I only have 500 megabytes of VRAM. So I don't suggest to use DaVinci Resolve if you have 500 megabytes of VRAM. But right now I'm using Kden Live, and that one is actually working really well. So I suggest this one. And second of all, FL Studio also has a web version, so I'm probably gonna go do that soon as well. I already got my access through email. I haven't tested it yet, but it's probably okay to use it. I just heard it's probably not the greatest with the plugins, but I personally don't use that many plugins when I'm making music, so for me it's not really the biggest issue at all. Basically the thing is, some apps don't work. That is just something you have to deal with. Some apps just don't work yet. However, something that really surprised me on my journey to Linux is that how many apps actually do work on Linux. It's a lot more than you would think. Like, it's basically every single app you can think of can work on Linux in some way or shape or form. There's only a few exceptions, and those are literally the companies that are giving their best not to be compatible with Linux, which is like pretty evil, but whatever you're gonna do, there just are some companies like that. And second of all, game wise, the games that require anti-cheat, but for me personally, it's not the biggest problem because I don't really play many games with anti-cheat. So for me as a retro gamer, doesn't really make a difference at all. One of my fears before starting the installation process of Linux was that I thought it would be really hard to install it. But the ironic thing is that it was actually way easier to install it compared to something like Windows. Like installing Windows on a new PC is way harder. You have to go through so many menus that are full of useless stuff, like set up OneDrive or log into your Microsoft account, all of those things. You don't have to do any of that stuff on Linux. You just download the operating system, choose some important settings like date and time and your region and whatever, and that's it. That's all you have to do on Linux. I mean, it also depends on the operating system, of course, but usually, I mean, it also depends on the Linux distribution that you have. However, most of them do function pretty similarly in that case. Okay, so I also wanted to do a list of all the reasons why I suggest switching from Windows to Linux. The ones that I noticed first and the ones that a lot of people around the community also have said it, and I couldn't agree with them more about these things. So the first one is, as I already mentioned, the incredible customizability. Okay, some people may not care about customizability that much, but don't you think it's good when your operating system respects you enough to give you some ways of customizing your UI without having to install thousands of different programs for it? Isn't that great? I think that's pretty great. It feels like the developers for Linux really thought about the people more than the developers of Windows 11. Which is ironic because there's so many more people working for Windows. Next up is that Windows is getting more and more bloated with every single update. It keeps getting different sort of news about oh, Windows broke Windows 11 again. Oh, Microsoft broke Windows 11. And it's sometimes so ridiculous things like you cannot use Task Manager many times at the same time or something like that, and it's so stupid mistakes, and you barely see those sorts of mistakes on the popular Linux distros. It seems like they care way more about their integrity than Windows nowadays. Anyways, that is also a good thing. So it's more stable because the developers really care about the product that they are making, and they're constantly updating it and making everything better to use. So third reason is that just the amount of community support that has been going into Linux nowadays is crazy. It's pretty much anything you want to do, you can do nowadays, except for the things that literally cannot be done on Linux, but it's not so many things left anymore that cannot be done on Linux, and those that cannot be done, I think in the future, in a few years, you can do all of those things on Linux as well. At least the important things. I think there will be some way to get Adobe products working on Linux. I know there already is a way of doing it by having a virtual console inside Linux. So that is one solution to it, but hopefully one day we will get a better solution to this, but for right now it's a bit complicated. The fourth reason I think Linux is great is because all of the distros. I know a lot of people say damn, having so many distros is just complicated and you have to make a choice between so many distros, and it's so annoying with Windows. You just get one or two windows that people currently use and that's it. But I think that is actually a really great thing, because think about it, for different devices that we have different needs. For example, CachyOS works perfectly for my desktop because I have a big monitor and the tiling system looks really cool, and everything looks really nice and neat. If I were to use it on, for example, a Steam Deck or something like that with a small screen. It wouldn't look great. It would look a little bit messy. And yeah, for me, just what I think is the best about it is like you can have whatever you want. Like it isn't just one choice. It isn't like Catchy OS is the only valid operating system you can install. You know, you can install so many, which means you can get exactly what you need. Like if download Linux Mint if all you want to do is everything you do on Windows, but just looks cleaner, doesn't have so many ads, everything just works better and less RAM consumption, stuff like that. Go for it. If you want complete and utter control, go for Arch or Catchy OS. Catchy OS is even better for gaming, I believe. There's also Bazzite, which technically I've heard is the best for gaming, but I don't like it because it's not Arch, so it's not as cool as Catchy OS. Pretty much what I want to say with this is like a lot of people are saying it's like a negative that you have so many distros, but it's actually a positive because all of those distros serve their own purpose and all of them are made for different kind of people. I do think Linux Mint has its place. Like for laptops, you want things to be as simple for everyone to understand as possible and stuff. And like sometimes I want to let my girlfriend use my laptop, for example, so it's easier for her to understand it if it's running Linux Mint compared to if it's running like Catchy OS. It might be a bit complicated because of the Arch and all that stuff. So that's why my laptop is currently just running Linux Mint with KDE Plasma desktop environment, and it looks really nice actually. Fifth reason why I prefer Linux compared to Windows. I already mentioned this before, but Linux is free. You can just download it for free and no extra charges really for most Linux versions. There may be like some that offer a paid tier or something, but it's probably not anything more expensive than Windows. And yeah, like most of them are just plain free. You just download it now and use it. That's it. That's the whole thing. They just do it like out of the kindness of their heart, pretty much. I would suggest anyone who is on the border of like thinking like, should I go with Linux? I don't know. I kind of like Windows, but it's getting worse and worse. If you are at that stage, I really suggest doing like me, which was dual booting Windows. So, I mean, I'm still dual booting Windows actually. And if you don't like it at all, if you think it's really bad, you can either try another distro to see maybe that one works better for you, or you can just go back to Windows and stay the way that it is. Or a thing I've seen a lot of people do nowadays is move from Windows 11 to Windows 10. That's also viable, but I would say it's still a downgrade compared to going with Linux. Okay, so a little bit about my Linux journey, first of all. So I started with Linux Mint on my laptop because I heard that was the easiest one to use, and like in the beginning I was really paranoid about like maybe Linux would be something that would be really hard to use day to day. It was like a constant fear, so I did go for one of the easiest distributions that people recommended, which was Linux Mint. And I do not regret going with this distribution at all. Everything is very like straight out of the box. Don't have to worry about anything, installing anything. Everything is installed for you. You pretty much get the basic Windows experience without all the bloatware and the negative experiences of a Windows desktop. That is a great deal considering that it's free and Windows costs money. Another thing I noticed that when I installed Linux Mint is that it took so less RAM. It took like only 2 gigabytes of RAM. I'm always used to Windows taking like 4 gigabytes for like no reason at all. Just to stay alive. At least Windows 11, I mean. Like Windows 11 is definitely like that. Like it just eats up RAM like for breakfast. So yeah, a lot of people have this fear that when they're gonna switch to Linux, it's gonna be so difficult. You're gonna have to do so much coding, gonna have to do so many hard things. But actually, if you go with Linux Mint, I'm pretty sure you will have to do like no coding at all. It will just work out of the box. The coding is just for doing the cool stuff, like adding custom notifications, creating some custom commands or something like that. You don't even have to install your apps from the terminal itself, even though it's really easy. You just write sudo apt install and then the name of the app, which is like a really streamlined process. But if you want it to be even more similar to Windows, you can just go to the app store that is inside of Linux Mint and just download the app from there, which is like also a simple way to do it. The thing that makes this a lot better than Windows actually is that on Windows a lot of the time, if you want to download an app, for example Discord, you literally just have to go on the internet, search for Discord and download it. But on Linux Mint you can just either go to the store that Linux Mint has integrated or just write one command in the terminal and that's it. It's downloaded. You don't have to connect to the internet at all. I mean, you don't have to go to the internet specifically at all. You just install it from your terminal or from the store. That is so much easier. Other than that, for Linux Mint, you really don't need much terminal at all if you don't want it. It's just there as a add-on, but it's not really something you need to have it functioning, you know? Currently, I am on CachyOS and I am using the Hyperland desktop environment. I mean, CachyOS was a little bit scary for me because jumping from Linux Mint to like Arch seemed like hella scary. But actually, the way that CachyOS does it, it makes using Arch pretty easy, actually. I mean, like, okay, of course it's not as easy as Linux Mint, but like, if you are the type of person who wants to install everything separately, this is the perfect thing for you. Like, nothing really comes pre-installed in this distribution. Like, I had to install most things myself. Like, okay, some things do come pre-installed, like the network manager, I believe, and a few other things, like the most important things are installed, but a lot of the things like a Bluetooth manager is not installed, etc. Some people might see that like as a pain, that it doesn't come with some like basic features from the beginning, but I really like that because I can choose only the things that I want on my PC and it will not install anything I don't need. If I really don't need a certain app at all, for my experience, then I just don't install it. With that I save space and I save processing power because I'm not processing apps that I don't need. CachyOS is the perfect OS for the people who want to have full control of their PC. Linux Mint is more like if you want more control than Windows, but not like complete freedom, like that you can literally do anything you want. It's still kind of limited, but I would suggest it to everyone who's still a beginner in Linux. Unless you know you are going to be the type of person who wants to tinker a lot and use the terminal a lot, which has become me now. It was not me at all in Windows, but on Linux I just love it. Like, you can literally do so many things with the terminal. Next up, I wanted to talk about gaming on Linux. A lot of people think that gaming on Linux is impossible or it's really hard. That rumor or that way of thinking is just really old, and people who know a little bit about Linux know that it's actually really good for gaming, and it's almost as good as Windows nowadays. I mean, in the past, yes, Linux wasn't the best for gaming, but now that we have things like the Steam Deck, which was launched on Linux, that kind of changed everything. Now, because we have things like Proton, pretty much you can just add a few extra things to a game, which makes it possible to launch it in Linux. Basically, it's launching it as the Windows app, but with some parameters to allow you to still play it even though you are on Linux. It's hard to explain what it is exactly, but this Proton thing pretty much allows you to play any game ever. And a lot of people say like, oh, you're never gonna get the same gaming performance on Linux than you can on Windows. Well, that depends on the game. I personally am like a retro gamer mainly. I don't really play the newest of games like, I don't know, Black Ops 7 or Call of Duty or Modern Warfare. For me, it's not really a big problem, and also it's actually great because actually Proton can make old games more stable, which is something really surprising. I was able to get a few retro games working on my Linux better. I mean, on CachyOS. I was able to get them working better on CachyOS than on Windows, and there was a few games, right, where like the base game always had issues on Windows, especially like older games. A lot of older games have issues on Windows 11, which is stupid because they were initially designed for like older Windows. So you would think that old Windows would be easy to emulate for Windows 11, but it's not. And then I was able to play that same game through Proton on Linux, and it was completely stable and it never crashed. The Windows version always kept crashing. So actually for retro gaming, I would really suggest downloading Linux. It's just it gives you so much more freedom, and like Proton also has so many different versions, and one of them is out to work. Another thing I wanted to talk about is another important tool for me is RPG Maker. I really use that one a lot as well, and it was disappointing that RPG Maker MZ, which is the version I'm using, doesn't have a Linux version. MV does have a Linux version though. So what I did was I just copy pasted my RPG Maker MZ from Windows to Linux, and then I opened it with Proton, and that worked pretty much perfectly. No issues at all. It's not crashing at all, no issues. It's pretty good. So yeah, for me, what I use Linux for mainly right now is like this, like content creation. I'm going to start making more videos, especially about my game developer journey. So right now I'm developing a game in RPG Maker, and I'll be making some videos about that. But yeah, that is one of the other things I use Linux for, just game developing on RPG Maker. And I really like RPG Maker. It's very good for beginners. I suggest you to learn it if you have some free time, because it's actually so cool how many things you can do with it. Not only RPG games, you can do pretty much any sort of game you want, as long as you have the patience and you have like the cleverness. You have to be clever with it. You have limited options, but you can use them in very creative ways. That's what I would say about RPG Maker MZ at least, but I mean MV probably also has a lot of options, so I would suggest that as well. Would I ever go back to Windows? That is a pretty good question. I think like as my main operation system, it will probably never happen. There's like a few things that might make me change my mind, like if Windows goes open source, which it will never go open source, let's be honest. That would kind of maybe change my mind about Windows a little bit, but still, like, Windows would have to do a lot to catch up to Linux and where it is now. Like, Linux has had so much time for development and becoming this awesome thing, and if Windows just started to do it tomorrow, that would still mean they have to do it for like 3 or 4 years to like catch up to Linux, or probably even more. So for the outro, I just wanted to ask a small question from you, the audience. Are you still on Windows? And if so, what is stopping you from switching? In the next video, I'll be showcasing my journey as a solo developer on RPG Maker, along with any problems I've had, any fun moments, and etc. See you in the next video. Cilium out.